Welcome to the Future Dreamers podcast. It's kind of crazy to even say that because it's taken me a while to start this thing. And I thought of it a long time ago, and this is probably the case with most people who start podcasts. Um, is it's not that a bunch of people are asking you to start one, it's that you have something in your brain that starts to work on you so thoroughly and in so many ways that if you don't get it out of you, you'll probably go a little batty. And I feel like I've finally hit that inflection point where if I don't just sit down and start talking, some screws are going to come loose. So I thought I would start by just setting the framework for what is this podcast about? Who the heck am I? What do I have to say? And then I'm going to let the universe do the rest of the magic from there. So my name is Catherine Leffler, and I'm from the middle of Texas, Austin to be exact. And I'm a lot of things, just like everybody. But to sum it up into a couple quick sentences, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm someone who's been on the journey of trying to find my freedom in life for about a decade. And I've done all kinds of things in life, in the work realm. I've been a waitress, a hostess, I've been a maid, I've been a software designer and a consultant and a project manager. I created my own CBD line. I'm a liquor importer, even though I quit drinking like 5 years ago. And my latest work of creation, that is probably the thing I've done that's the most nearest and dearest to my heart, is I just launched my dream astrology app, and it's called Starline. And since that's my baby right now, that's going to be the sponsor of every one of these podcasts. But the heart of all of that is that I'm a dreamer. I've been a dreamer since I can remember. And I'm 41 now. And as I travel back through my own personal history, I remember so many times that dreaming and my imagination and visualization got me through so much. And in kind of traveling back through my own imaginal past, I've realized how natural dreaming and imagination and really like the actual idea of visualization has come natural to me, to the point that I almost have this just compassion and awe and respect for myself that dreaming has always been an intuitive drive for me. And so I really want to get the opportunity to ask other people about their dreams, their imagination, and with a specific bent on what is your dream for the world. Because if anybody's been paying attention, then the time that, and if anyone's not only just been paying attention to the news, but also paying attention to how they feel inside, I think if you're like me, you are at this inflection point where you feel like we're in a historical time, where history is happening around us, and we're also kind of called to be part of history if we so choose to accept that invitation. And my intuition is that our dreams are a huge part of how we can participate in this historical moment. And so I have this concept that has just been burbling and bubbling in my mind for several years. And if I don't sit down and explain it and talk about it and go out into the world and ask other people to have conversations about it with me, again, I think screws are going to come loose. So the concept is called future dreaming. And this is kind of how I envision it, but I know that many people around the world, many beautiful future thinkers and philosophers have similar imaginal frameworks and methodologies, and they probably call them by many names. But to explain to you what the concept of future dreaming is, it's kind of this alchemical mathematical framework that fits inside my imagination and can fit inside the imagination of anyone. And really what it is kind of a way to conceive of where you are in time, what time geography you inhabit now, And it consists of the present moment, the past, and the future. And the idea is that all of those are intricately related. And, in quantum discussions, people talk about them as being stacked on top of one another and that they're all the same thing. And I'm not going to go into that because that's not my area of expertise. But what I want to kind of lay out is how my imagination has traveled this framework over the last several years, and how I think it can be helpful for all of us who are on our own journeys of contributing in our service mission in life to the most dreamy future that we can imagine. And so when I say future dreaming, what I mean is it's an imaginal exercise and an invitation to, in your own mind, unchain yourself from all of the constraints that currently inhabit and make up your current reality. All of the rational things, all of the logical things, all the practical things. Just for a minute, give yourself the opportunity to unhook yourself from all of that stuff. Because I think it really, it's so present in all of our realities that it can constrain your dreams. And so once you've done that little imaginal unhooking, use your childlike playfulness, your imagination, all the beauty you've seen in the world, and everything that's in your heart, and use it as like rocket ship fuel to blast off into a dream future. Whether this is a daydream, whether this is something you think of in those 20 minutes before you fall asleep at night, whatever, it doesn't matter. Whether you're taking a walk and you just let yourself go on a flowing daydream. Imagine the dopest, most glittery, neon-inflected future that you can think of. And it doesn't matter if this thing would be possible in 100 years, 200 years, time doesn't matter anymore. Could be 1,000, although I hope it's not that long. And think of what would be the dreamiest future you can imagine. What would be right in front of you? What would construct that world? It's almost like now that the metaverse is a thing, even though I haven't used the Google goggle glasses or the Facebook glasses or the Apple goggles or whatever is now in the zeitgeist, just use your imagination, the OG version of all of that stuff, and construct that world, and like figure out, it doesn't have to be something that you paint that picture all in one foul swoop. This is a conceptual methodology that works throughout time. And hopefully you'll do this throughout the course of your entire life. And as you do that, and every time you come back to that world, it can morph, it can change, it can be inflected with new art you've seen in the world, new ideas you've heard from other people. But this imaginal dream world, this future dream, it belongs to you, and it's like a sacred space in your internal world. And so keep revisiting it and designing it and be the architect of it and the artist of it. So that's part one. That's the future dream version of a surreal, sublime future that is not constrained by any of the realities that are part of your present world. And then anytime that works for you, spend time as a self-care exercise. And again, this is something to come back to. It's not a one and done situation. Come back to your present life and begin the art of contemplation around it in whatever way that works for you. And think about who you are, what makes up your thoughts, what makes up your heart, what makes up the physical world around you. And then in another part, this is a multi-step process. Imagine, go back in history into the past, starting with yourself, and think about the last year, think about the last several years, think about the different phases of your life that you've existed in so far, because all of those make up the evolutionary sort of roadmap of your development and growth and maturation. And we are all who we are in this time in the present because of what happened in the past and what inputs created the substrate that birthed who we are at any given time in our path. And the decisions we made, or the decisions that were made for us, or the constraints that made up our reality from the family side, your friends, your community, your society, and so on and so forth, until you can kind of conceive of how you really are an individual, grain of sand that, is part of the beach of humanity and our entire environment. And as you travel through that, you'll start to weave in, ideas of what created your family history. Who are your parents? How did they meet? What was the, what have you heard about their history before they met you, or before they created you? And then what was their reality like in life? Did they get married because they loved each other? Was it a product of circumstances? And try and reserve judgment if you can, just for the sake of this contemplation exercise and this contemplation methodology. Try and go at it from a place of curiosity. And again, there's really no rules to this conceptual framework of future dreaming. It's really just a framework I've kind of stumbled upon, and I think it's a very interesting experiment to just run in the back of your mind kind of at all times. Because as you go back into your own past, inevitably it gives you the opportunity to fall in love with your own story and realize how unique your own story is. And that everyone, as you fall in love with yourself and then travel through times that were difficult, travel through times that were joyful, you'll be able to issue yourself compassion for any challenges that you've lived through and overcome. And that kind of self-love and compassion that you begin to develop and hold for yourself then becomes like a tool that you can extend to other people and get curious about everyone's life. You don't have to sit in curiosity for everyone at all times, because you'd probably get so curious you wouldn't have time to do anything in your real life. But you know what I mean. It's just kind of like an alchemical awareness that you can envelop, you can unravel within yourself. And so then as if you're here at your present, you've traveled back through your own past, and you contemplate everything that made up your evolutionary journey as a human up until this point, and you get back to the realm of your parents. What was going on in their generation? What inputs created the reality of their communities, good or bad? What constraints were they faced with? Societal, in society, in religion, in pop culture, in art, whatever it is, wherever your imagination goes to remember, and just kind of stay in that place for a little while. And then do the next generation, go back to your grandparents, and then go back to your great grandparents if you were lucky enough to meet them. And so you can take it back as far as you want to go, but eventually where you're going to get is almost to like the version of counting to infinity, but in the past, as you realize that humanity is made up from so many inputs that at the end of the day were constructed as a facet of human survival. And if you go back to, a place where history isn't documented into, thousands of years into the past of humanity, and you kind of think about what it was like to survive in caveman days, and then as society was just coming together to create agriculture and cities and tribes. And you don't have to have the historical documentation of all that stuff when you're just doing these imaginal exercises. But there's so many tools that once you do this basic future dreaming exercise that's really designed to get your contemplation going in an alchemical direction that just is meant to broaden your consciousness in whatever route and stream it's meant to go. Then you can weave in tools that help you put structure wherever you want to put it, whether that's watching documentaries, whether that's consuming art, whether that's creating your own art, whether that's looking back at old family photos. listening to music from different time periods, listening to music from all over the world, eating different foods, eating your childhood cravings, eating food from a land that you've never been to before. And it's all to kind of just bring you into the incredible tapestry of humanity that encompasses all of the trauma that we've been through as a species, all of the beauty and joy that's been part of motivating us to keep going through surviving in a world that is so uncertain. And at the end of the day, we all live with, as a species that can conceive of our own death, we have, this drive to kind of, do everything we can to find comfort in the world so that we placate our sense of our impending death one day. And that's not to sound morbid, it's more to just bring awareness to how that has probably affected all of human decision making as we've kind of figured out the tangible real world we live in. And so that brings me around to kind of what I want to explore in this podcast, is that there are so many tools that humans have created. And, probably the prime directive of creating tools in our human lives is to make survival easier, find ways to bring comfort to our lives so we can enjoy the beauty and comfort of the present moment, hopefully with the people we love, doing the things that we love. But also, as humans have created tools and scarcity has always been at play, then we've created tools that have obviously caused immense trauma and grief around the world, as human tribes and societies have taken from other tribes and societies to try and accumulate things to make their lives easier. And we don't need to all know the exact story of human history to just know that it's been a lot to be on this planet. And even though we're in modern times, it's still a lot to be on this planet, and we're still faced with our own sense of scarcity and drive to survive. And now that we're in this new time where we have access to the news of all of humanity seemingly at the touch of a phone screen, we are this new generation that has this new task of learning how to survive and move forward while we emotionally conceive of all of the pain, joy, and everything in the middle that's going on throughout the world. And this brings me to, so what do you do with all of this? Well, I think that is kind of the question that our current version of humanity is asked to answer altogether. And now that we are in this time where we can connect to each other digitally through the internet, like we are a human mycelial network, is that we have the opportunity to confer amongst as many people as can gather and share information as to what we're going to do with it. And that's where I think future dreaming comes into play, is that just like the way humanity got to the moon was to look at the moon and say, damn, how do we get there? And that's the first step in imagining the process of how you get to the moon. So is future dreaming the way that we, being grounded in the understanding, at least a base level understanding of everything it's taken for humanity to survive, for you to be alive in this moment, and the mind-blowing gratitude for all of the lives that we live and everything we have, and the awareness that so many people on the earth are not living in the dignity and safety and calm and abundance that would allow them to future dream and know that they can bring that closer into their reality. If you have the space to do a contemplative exercise like this, you're, in my mind, participating in a spell that we can all begin to sort of cast together through the power of collaboration, digitally through the internet, to talking about our dreams with each other, using tools. If you've ever used Midjourney, then you know that it's basically getting easier than ever to physically look at what your dreams may look like and share that with other people. And so I think that what this is starting to bring into our realities is the power to collaborate in manifesting on a scale that's never been available to another generation of humans before. And if you are a believer in magic, as I am, and you are a practitioner of magic, as I am always striving to be, then you know that visualization is a major technique in the art of manifesting, which to me is aligning your intuition, aligning your intention, and aligning your action with what the universe is trying to bring to bear in reality, and letting time work on that to arrange a future that actually brings your dreams into your hands. And so many people on the internet are practicing the art of manifestation in their individual lives. I think the future of humanity looks something like we are more and more able to manifest collectively. And as some of my favorite future thinkers of the world articulate, uh, humanity needs to draw up a new story of what our dreams are. And so by engaging in this art, this contemplative exercise, this imagination framework methodology called future dreaming, and you can call it whatever you want, there's no patent or copyright on this, is that we are beginning to be able to share stories of what our individual future dreams look like, and then start to weave and stitch those together with the future dreams of others. And I know that technology already has all of the basic framework that we need to do that stitching, and then to start doing the building. Whether the building happens on this podcast, I don't know. But my intention is that through exploring other people's future dreams, is that I can start to enjoy the beauty of seeing what goes on in other people's imaginations, and that's a working spell that the universe can hear to actually start to make the framework come alive. And so there's so many tools that you can use to do this, whether that's imagining the future before you go to sleep, taking time in any given present moment to contemplate how amazing it is that your parents came together to have you in whatever situation that was, painful, perfect, although perfect probably doesn't exist, and everything in between. And then getting curious about cultures all over the world, and knowing that just like you have your incredible story of survival in your own life, and everything you've surmounted and overcome, and everything that all the decisions you've made to become yourself, and everything that happened in your family stories. I mean, I know I have a pretty interesting family. And then I say that with, a lot of long stories I'll maybe tell some other time. But there's certainly a lot of color and character in my own family line. And that gives me a compassion for what it took for my family to survive, so that I could be here enjoying this present moment with my cat over here, and off camera there's all kinds of other cats around me out in the country. But it gives me this deep curiosity and makes me fall in love with humanity, to then wonder about other people's humanity and their family stories and their dreams, and the idea that I'm living in a time where I have the opportunity, if I choose, to go out and ask people around the world to tell me about their dreams. And so that's going to be the loose framework for this podcast. And as I kind of, dangle that ornament in front of you, I want to kind of articulate that I think that there are many tools that we can use to do future dreaming, because it's not all, glitter and unicorns, although I would advise a heavy dose of glitter and unicorns when you're doing the future part of the future dreaming. But what we'll have to do in order to achieve this dream future is understand the delta between whatever that future dream is and where we are now. And that then leads us to understand the beginnings of the tool creation and the structural creation that we'll have to engage in together as teams of business builders, community builders, and society builders to make that bridge to cross that delta. And that's why I think it's so helpful to ground our future dreams in an awareness of the nuanced past that is the substrate from which our current present was born. Because it's very easy to get trapped in kind of, I don't want to say grieving about the present, but to and I don't quite want to use the word to be in victim consciousness of the present, but I think there's so much there's a requirement to grieve whatever is if there's pain present. But if you can stay in that present moment of grief and then allow yourself to move back into a nuanced awareness of what was the reality of the past that caused the archetypal building blocks to be just so, that then created a painful present, I think that helps us inform how we can better create the future, because you have to learn from the past in order to create and design a more beautiful future, or at least that's my intuition. And so I think the more we can do that together, with the emergence of technology that's on the planet, and that's a bigger discussion. But I know, to me, I understand that AI has many unknowns and many potential scary timelines that it can take us down. But I think just like a hammer could be used to nail a nail into a board to build a house, or it could be used for something nefarious. Any tool in the hands of humans can be used for good or bad, just like medicine can be poison if taken in excess quantities. It's all about how you use it. And so in terms of AI, I think one of the beautiful possible timelines that we can create within humanity with a tool like AI is that we can use it as a tool for synthesizing human imagination, and harnessing all of our genius to allow us to manifest a synthesis of human genius more rapidly, that would allow us to drive closer to a dreamy future. And so again, it's all about whatever tools you have in front of you to like build the building blocks of your future dreaming. Use them. Some of the ones that I use, I'm a huge astrology nerd, which would make sense since I spent the last year creating an app designed for personal evolution through astrology. I watch documentaries, books, podcasts, art, conversations with your friends, conversations with your family, looking at old family photos, napping, yoga, whatever you want. The Gene Keys is one of my favorite tools to use as an archetypal exploratory framework of the map of human consciousness, that has given me so much fodder and inspiration and permission for contemplation in my own life, that has helped me really come to grips with parts of the human consciousness that scared me or made me uncomfortable, or I wasn't able to quite look at fully. And that's why I think archetypes are such an incredible human technology. And to me, I think technology is not just, things we can turn on with buttons, but it's everything, from fire to the art of storytelling, and how archetypes really are the framework for the unspeakable language of the universe, that when you hear of an archetype or stories that are comprised of archetypes like myths, they work in your consciousness. Obviously when you hear them, whether a myth was created 5,000 years ago or 20 years ago, it doesn't really matter, because it's comprised of archetypes that are timeless and span human consciousness throughout different cultures and time periods. And I think that that's just something like really fascinating to just the fact that humans have archetypes as tools to understand ourselves and each other and use them as ladders to travel the frequency of that archetype, because archetypes, as Richard Tarnas says, are multivalent and they cover a lot more than just one topic. They're umbrellas that can kind of encompass an entire frequency range of human consciousness. And as you know, from an astrology standpoint, I have studied my birth chart in such a way that it has helped me become the archaeologist of my own consciousness. And it's not something I gained awareness of in one 30-minute, review of my birth chart, but it allowed me to go on an emotional and contemplative journey of my own patterns, the good and the bad. And it allowed me to take a look at myself in such a way that I could understand how complicated I am as a human. And it's not just, I'm not uniquely complicated as a human. It allowed me to gain a perspective of awareness that every human is so deeply, beautifully complicated and has their challenges and has their gifts. And as I reviewed that and valued that and honored that in myself, my ability to get curious and revere other people's complicated, faceted nature as sacred grew. And that grew my ability to get excited about life and to hold more beauty in my heart and imagination. And so astrology, I'm sure many episodes will come out of this just on that topic alone, because I think that once you decide to go on the journey of future dreaming, it really opens you up to the fact that we're all on a journey. We're all on our individual journeys. We're in journeys within any relationship we have, within our family, within our communities, within our society. And then we realize we are links in the journey of the collective journey of humanity. And if you resonate with the idea of reincarnation, which I do personally, and as John Churchill, a very fascinating thinker, says, to run the idea of reincarnation as an app in your brain opens up a new level of interesting awareness, and I find it to be a tool of magic, because you then don't think of just this lifetime as all you've got, but it's all you've got right now. But that allows you to broaden your awareness of the different cycles within consciousness maturation that you are a participant in now, and that you've probably been a participant in since time immemorial. And this is where it kind of swings back around to make future dreaming more interesting and cool and neat, is that if you are dreaming of this future that you think is 1,000 years away, or so far out of the constraints of reality that you have no idea when this future could come into existence, by resonating with reincarnation, you kind of realize that it doesn't matter when it happens. You can get yourself there. And I think that's kind of, I don't want to go too much into a rabbit hole of that, but the idea of doing magic across lifetimes is so fascinating to me. And what better way to practice that than by doing magic in your own life right now, which is what future dreaming really all comes down to, is can we become magical manifestors through our visionary technology that exists within our imagination. And imagination is such an innate quality to human beings that for me, it's one of the key ingredients that really juices my belief in magic. And my belief in magic has grown and evolved with my own experience of how I've done magic in my own life and how I've seen that the universe has done magic with me. And I don't want to say I'm an expert, because I'm really just a devoted student. And maybe I can say I hope I become an expert by the time I am an old lady, if I make it that far. But in any case, I want to invite you on this journey of exploring human consciousness with me, exploring human dreaming with me, and exploring the different tools that we all use to contribute to the evolution of human consciousness. And so that might be a good place to kind of bring it around to a wrap up. And I think in the next couple episodes, I am going to tackle the topics, the beginnings of the topics of what is astrology, maybe not from a nuts and bolts. I don't need to explain to you every part of it, because there's so many places on the internet where you can get that information, and I'll link it too. But how can you use astrology as a framework for doing magic in your own personal evolution, which is how I use it? And how could we use astrology as a collective tool for collective evolution and collective works of magic? That's a topic that fascinates me, and I want to talk to lots of people about how they envision that. And then I want to talk to people about, what do they think magic is? What does magic mean to you? How have you done magic in your life? How do you want to do magic in your life? And what are the tools that you use to do it? Because I think magic is such an individual thing that everyone's answer is valid, and everyone will have a slightly and probably very unique answer. But in any case, if you watched to this point in the podcast, thank you so much for taking this, trip of imagination with me. I hope to hear from you in the comments about what your future dreams are. And I didn't get quite around to laying out what my future dream is. This was sort of just to lay out the framework, and hopefully I did it in not too much of a roundabout way. But it is a roundabout imaginal tool, and there are no rules, so rabbit holes are allowed and encouraged. But yeah, I'm excited to do another episode where I actually lay out what my future dream for the world is. And certainly some of the ways that I have looked back into my own past as a human who's been so lucky to be on this planet for the last 41 years, and the ways that I have looked back into the past of my family and processed a lot of ancestral pain and grief, and also a lot of ancestral gratitude and just mind-blowing, just awe of what it took to survive, and how that has expanded my ability to take immense joy in hearing other people's stories. And all of that brings me around to how excited I am for whatever generation, I don't even care if it's my generation, that gets to exist and live in a world that has surmounted all of the realms of human darkness that have been caused by our need to survive, to a level that we actually build structures out of whatever we've got right now and evolve into a place where everyone's humanity is celebrated and recognized, and where we create societal structures that allow our communities to be such that we can all live in a level of abundance that sees our dignity as sacred and allows us space and time in our lives to investigate who we are as humans, because each of us is a totally unique seed. Especially if you look at anyone's birth chart, you see that everyone is an archetypal snowflake that's never existed in the history of humanity or life at all, and that we all have this potential inside us. And what prevents us, what has prevented everyone in human history from activating everything that's inside of us has been that we're kind of in this part of human consciousness evolution where survival has taken up most of our time. But my future dream is that we start to build within society the tools that will allow us to incrementally get to a place where society looks like educational systems that encourage each individual human to go on their own activation mystery school of their own initiatory journey, and it makes sense that old traditional education didn't have the technology to make that available for everyone. But I definitely see it in the very real near future. And so if every human was availed to discover their own genius, and we had the technology that allowed us to stitch all of that genius together, like what that world looks like blows my mind open and it blows my heart open. And like the fusing of the mind and the heart in that reality, I mean, it would be delicious. And so that's what I want to talk about on this journey of conversations that I am embarking on having. So if you want to be a part of one of those conversations, obviously hit me up in any of my DMs or drop a comment or an email. And in any case, I'm just looking forward to seeing all of the magic that we can do. And if you've listened this far, thank you so much, and toodaloo until next time.